Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name's Curtis and this is the Curt Locker. Today I'm going to be talking about a very special piece of equipment in my gym. One would argue that it is the centerpiece of my gym, and it is my ARC 4-post rack from Surplus Strength. Now there's a few notes about this. First off, this rack, when it was delivered to my house by Jason over at Surplus Strength, it was a prototype rack. What that means is that there's a couple changes that have been made to the design and the process over at Surplus Strength over the last year. I'll talk about those things as they come up in the video, but overall, the rack that I have here is pretty close to what the final production version is going to be. But for starters, let's just kind of define what kind of rack that is sitting in front of you. What we have is a 4-post power rack. It has a 43-inch inside depth, 43-inch inside width. Mine is the 100-inch tall version. I wanted that specifically as a strongman so that I could log press inside the rack. Additionally, I have a bolted on UPS high up in the top portion, and of course I can pin in my UPS low whenever I want, which makes this rack functional as both a lat tower as well as a low row, which really, as far as the size of my gym, creates a giant amount of capability in a very small amount of space. Before I had this rack, I had a Rogue Monster Light, and it was a really good rack. I had it for years, but there was a couple things that always just kind of left me wanting. First off, the lack of ability for upgraded or premium style attachments. The 5/8" holes that come on a Monster Light or maybe a PR4000 series rack, it just wasn't where I wanted. So what I was looking for when I was looking for a new rack was 3x3, American made with 1-inch holes. Now the fact that my rack is American made is just a personal priority of mine. I prefer small business, preferably veteran owned and made in America. That doesn't mean that there aren't import versions of a 3x3 with 1-inch hole rack that aren't great. Additionally, I have 24-inch safety spotter arms as well as drop-in safeties, and there's a little bit of changes that were made to those particular products that are different from what you see here today. Now let's talk about the changes specifically. First off with the J-cups. So the J-cups change in a couple ways. One, the amount of space between this back portion of UHMW and this front lip was widened a little bit. This was to allow for a 2-inch axle bar or a specialty bar such as the Kabuki Cadillac to actually sit completely inside the J-cup. As it's designed right now, the bars tended to rest between this point and the back. Not that it's that big of a deal, but being able to get a 2-inch bar fully into the J-cup is something that's pretty necessary in my point of view, and that's especially because a lot of people are using specialty bars, and a lot of those specialty bars have a 2-inch diameter bar. The UHMW width is just a little bit wider in this area right here, which does not make the overall J-cup any wider. It sits inside that 3x3 channel. It doesn't get any wider, it just widens out the brackets and makes a bigger piece of plastic in the middle. The last thing that I noticed is that on the new J-cups, there is Surplus Strength cut branding in the side of the J-cup, which I think is a really nice touch. Now, in my opinion, the biggest change that they made to this rack is they went from an inline hole design to an offset hole design. What that allows you to do is we right now have the J-cup and number 26. If I was to want to put some sort of other object 90 degrees offset to that into the same hole, I would run into an issue where the pin from the J-cup is actually blocking the safety pin from being inserted in this direction. By going to an offset hole spacing, what you're able to do is have something in 26 and then either 1 inch above or 1 inch below have a safety pin that could hold up a dip attachment or some other type of attachment. This also makes assembly a lot easier because now you're not going to be limited to where we have the cross members coming off of this side and my pull-up bar coming off of this side. I can have my pull-up bar all the way up to where that cross member bolt goes through the rack. As stated, this is where that makes that huge difference. So you can see where the cross member goes through, and as a result, I have to have the pull-up bar 2 inches below where I would really like it. But by going to offset hole spacing, I'll be able to get that pull-up bar all the way up to the top of the rack like I prefer. The next area that Jason and the guys over at Surplus made a big change to was their drop-in safety design. Their drop-in safety is made with really tight tolerances. It fits in beautifully. It doesn't shift that much forward to backward, which you don't want it to. You want it to be fairly tight in there. But the one complaint that I had was that there was no way for them to pin this spotter design in. The big issue with that is when I use this as a lat tower, I tend to put leg rollers through a safety on this side, and I was constantly having to take this one off and to put my pinnable safety spotter arm vertically here in order to hold the leg rollers. But by putting a pin holding this in, from now on when I go to use this as a lat tower and I want to use this as the lap holder, the foam rollers, I don't have to worry about the spotter arms moving when you put the pin in. They just hold right there. So I'm really excited to get my hands on a new pair of drop-in safety designs. I'm a really big fan of how these look. They do have the numbers going from 1 to 19 all the way across. One last area that a lot of things have changed was actually with the safety spotter arm design overall. Right now you take up a lot of real estate. So if I were to count them, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 holes that get taken up by the safety spotter arm. What Jason and crew have done is they have reduced that overall size down by 1 hole. Additionally, they've added a larger gusset right here and make it so that you can actually pin these in. Now mine do actually pin in, and it's not really all that necessary to pin these in, but I do personally prefer to do it just because I don't like the idea of my kids coming out here and being able to move these safety arms up and down. Now, as for actual tolerances, these things are wildly tolerant. They really click into place. I'm a huge fan, and one little weird thing that I've caught on to is that the Surplus Strength logo actually appears to be straight no matter what side of the rack that you're looking at it from. I think that that's just a nice little symmetrical detail that Surplus Strength has with their racks, and I really like it. Now, having one of the prototype racks, I did have the ability to choose my own logo cutout. Right now, all of them come with the standard Surplus Strength cutout in that back banner, but it is a really nice looking, it has a nice aesthetic to it, and additionally, it can be modified in the future because all that it is a bolt and hole pattern with that banner going across. So if I wanted to add layers, that's something that I could probably commission to be done later. One last change that was actually done, which I don't have that here, but a really popular option with the UPS High is to use it in tandem with a Rogue Rhino. Now there's a couple issues with that. You usually need to have a Rogue integrated Rhino for that to work. So what Jason and crew have done is they've actually modified the bottom holes, basically where the holes start at, and they've made it so that a Rhino will actually bolt into one of the Surplus Strength racks. That way you can use that capability when you purchase it. Now, I feel like it'd be a really big foul if I didn't talk about what sets Surplus Strength racks apart from others. You know, racks are pretty basic things. They're usually 3x3, 1-inch holes, and from there, it's just a matter of like, is it inline hole spacing or offset hole spacing? What color options do you have, which you can get several different color options for this rack, stock price. But one of the things that Jason has done is he has made assembly even easier than any other rack I've ever done. Now, I've assembled racks from Rogue Fitness, Rep Fitness, Stray Dog Fitness, Frey Fitness. The list goes on and on. I've assembled a whole lot of racks in my day. And something that you always have is you have that issue where you're trying to get a cross member up and you're sitting there with a bolt, a lock washer, a normal washer, and a nut. Now, what Jason has done is he's basically eliminated the need for you to be holding all that hardware because he welds all the nuts onto the cross members before he ships them out to you. Now, I realize this probably doesn't seem like that big of a deal. And in reality, there's probably not a big demand for welded on nuts. But I can tell you, I've had to adjust this rack several times, and it is so easy when you just have to get a socket wrench and throw it on the bolt side and be able to unscrew this and not have to worry about your nut falling off, not have to worry about where it falls and scatters throughout the gym. Additionally, because of the way it's designed, I don't need to use a lock washer. I can just put the flat washer on the bolt side, throw it through, and just screw away. And another thing that sets a Surplus Strength rack a little bit differently than everybody else's is that a lot of the cross members have a little welded on pin. Now, I've tried to get camera shots of this pin. I'm gonna try to throw some B-roll in here. It's really hard to get, but this little pin that you can see right here sticks through and actually guides into a hole. It doesn't guide so much that it blocks a bolt in that same hole. Not that it's a problem anymore because now we're to offset hole spacing, but it does make it very simple when it comes to assembling the rack because you can do it pretty much by yourself. I've assembled a whole bunch of different types of racks by myself, but I can tell you right now that when it comes to putting this thing together or moving things around on this rack, I'm way more comfortable about doing it by myself than with any other brand that I've ever used, and that's all because of those guide pins and welded nuts. Outside of that, it's pretty basic. It's a power rack. It's 3x3 with 1-inch holes. There's really not all that much to say about it. Fit, finish, welds are all beautifully done. There's really nothing on this thing that I'm not happy with. And like I said, I have one of the prototype models, and this is back when Jason was still mastering his craft of learning how to weld. I have no regrets about this purchase, and the last thing I want to talk about with the Surplus Strength Arc Series is the price. Now, it seems like whenever you do these kind of videos, you have to constantly bring up what the price is as of today. And what we're looking at is that for an Arc Series 4-post rack, in my configuration, that means 100 inches tall, we're looking at $1,930, and that is the base price. Now, a little note about that base price is that it doesn't come with J-cups, it doesn't come with drop-in safeties, and it does not come with spotter arms. Now, if you want the J-cups, you can purchase Jason's for $279. The drop-in safeties are another $459, and the safety spotter arms are $379. Additionally, Surplus Strength has some shop pay options. If financing a rack is something that you feel like you need to do, you can get it financed. Now, if you want to get it in a lower height, so let's say that you're in a basement gym, it's $1,530 base price starting. And of course, there's a 90-inch option, which is about $1,720. Now, I say about for a reason, because you can actually get this rack for a little bit less money. If you use code KURTLOCKER, all one word, at checkout, it can save you a little bit of money. I'm a huge fan of Surplus Strength and everything they're trying to do. I'm also a really big fan of small businesses like his because they highlight and they really cater to that niche market of American-made, super high quality, and super good customer service. Jason cares about every single order he puts out, and I can tell you that he personally touches absolutely everything that leaves his factory floor. But that's been it for this review. Tell me what you guys think in the post down below. I think he's done a good job of making this a competitively priced, small business, American-made rack. But tell me what you guys think down below. That's been it for this review. I appreciate you watching. And remember, when it comes to your home gym, you should always keep it better, awesome, and of course, badass. See you next time.